Welcome to Milestone Moments, the show where we explore the journeys that lead to success. I'm Sheila Slick, your host and founder of 5 Milestones. In every episode, we will bring you insights from the minds of entrepreneurs, leaders, and experts who will share not just their expertise, but the milestone moments that have reshaped their journeys and led to significant achievements. So if you're looking for motivation, you're in the right place. Subscribe now and discover the milestones that mark the path to success. Welcome to another episode of Milestone Moments in Business and Leadership. I'm your host, Sheila Slick, and today my special guest is Sabine Hutchison. Sabine is a scientist turned entrepreneur and the CEO and co-founder of SUS Plus. She's also the author of Beyond the Ladder and host of Be the Ripple. Through her work, she helps leaders and organizations find clarity, confidence, and courage in their growth journeys, transforming uncertainty into purpose-driven impact. Welcome to the show, Sabine.
Thank you. And thanks for that lovely introduction, Sheila.
Well, I absolutely loved the word scientist
Yay.
turned
No.
entrepreneur.
Yeah.
These are
Yeah.
words that really resonate with me. That makes you a woman in STEM.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about that reinvention. How did you go from scientist to entrepreneur?
To entrepreneur. I studied chemistry, and it's interesting. Everyone says, "Oh, you had this big plan to be in the lab and to do research," and actually, I didn't. I studied chemistry because I was just interested in it. I loved it. I loved from high school. I liked biology and chemistry classes, and I just loved figuring stuff out. So I was like, okay, well, that's what I'm going to study. But I had no grand plan of necessarily working in research. I didn't know what I was going to do, but loved it. And then I was an entrepreneur quite a bit later. So I did work in the science space for quite a few years after I graduated, but also totally different than being in the lab. I remember I lived on the East Coast, and I had my first interviews. Some of them were with NIH, doing research, and quite a few of the labs were doing research on mice. And I was like, nah. So I based decisions not to work in the lab because I was like, okay, can't do this. So I was like, what else am I going to do? And then I went more in the environmental industry. And so I worked actually with disposing hazardous chemicals. So I still used the science and had to use my brain around that, but just not in a bench.
So your first entrepreneurial venture was not science related?
Well, somewhat. I guess the first company when we started Zeus, we do work in the science industry. We support biotech companies that are in the clinical research stage. So that's what we do. So it's science-based, but it's a combination of business, understanding the science behind, the clients that we're working with. But I don't do typical science work every day. No.
What does it really mean to go beyond the ladder in your career and leadership journey?
That is a good one. And I think for me, going beyond the ladder is stepping away from what we hear from society or what we've potentially heard growing up is the proper career path. I come from a generation. We're having a chat before we hit record about the generation where we come from, and I think we're somewhat similar, maybe a little bit older, but it was, you learned, you got a job, you did this, you took steps, you grew, you went into an organization, and it was more like a funnel. So you stayed straight. And for me, beyond the ladder and growing your career is about all the zigzag moments. So it's being able to step away from what has maybe intrinsically been how we were raised and what are these traditional paths for a career, and welcoming all the pivots. I've had wild pivots in my career, but I would still consider myself successful. But I just didn't do the traditional the traditional steps. So that's what Beyond the Ladder is about for me, is about welcoming the pivots and embracing those and, yeah, actually being open to them.
So, how can people pivot without losing momentum?
Mhm.
What lesson can you
Yeah.
share to help anyone that is looking to pivot?
Yeah. I believe it's being very aware of your skill set and knowing where your strengths are. One of the ladies that I interviewed for the book, I think that this is a perfect example of actually pivoting away. She was in an industry, she was in the finance industry, and she worked as she worked no, she wasn't in the finance industry, she worked in finance, and she wanted to shift into, a completely different area. And she herself thought, "Oh, I need to adjust my salary. I need to adjust all my expectations because I haven't taken this I'm not in finance taking the next step." And it's about valuing the skill sets that you come in to a position with, and don't downgrade them just because you're moving potentially into another role in another industry and of where you're traditionally coming from. So that is also knowing your value, knowing your skills and what you bring to the organization that you're stepping into, being able to advocate for yourself and feel confident in doing that. So I believe that that's one of the lessons that's really important, is to be able to have that available. I call it my Spotify list of skills. We all, you're at a party and you're like, "Oh, I want to hear this song. What do I want to dance to?" And you go to your Spotify list. Well, I encourage women in the book. I have exercises where you actually list your skill sets and where your strengths are, because that helps you making a pivot, because then you feel confident about what you bring into a role.
And the book, tell us a little bit more about the book. It's a collection of stories of different women.
It's yeah, I interviewed 36 women, and the book is for me, it's about different chapters that I feel are very valuable. It's I've read so many different books. I think we all have, a lot of self-development and self-growth, and I thought, "Okay, this is interesting," and I've kind of put those together. And it's about finding your network, how to manage your network, how to embrace it and to build it, how to find a sponsor or a mentor or a coach, how to brand yourself, how to work according to your values. So it's a mix of ideas and concepts about what is important to help you develop in your career. And the workbook helps you actually do practical pieces. So I'm a very practical person, because if I read something, I don't know about you, but it helps when I write things down. And that helps embed and it makes things sticky for me. So that's what the book is about giving you some theory around thinking about your skill sets and what you're really great at, but then actually jotting them down, and then jotting them down and writing them down from a different perspective, like asking your friends, asking coworkers, asking a manager, "What am I great at?" Because that is another perspective that's important when you reflect upon yourself. So the book is a lot of stories from these women, that, shared how they developed their careers and what was important for them. Some women talked about how they defined their network, that they have buckets of, people that they work that they not use sounds I don't mean to say uses that way, that they use them in a negative sense, but that they tap into and they need different support. So each woman her story is embedded in one of the chapters that reflects that chapter's theme.
Share the title of the book.
It's called Beyond the Ladder. I'll show I know we're not on video, but it's Beyond the Ladder, A Woman's Career Guide to Clarity, Impact, and Legacy.
I love the title.
Yeah, I do too. And then the workbook is the same, but it's filled with space to write and time that you should take for yourself, I think, to reflect.
I've been writing a lot and with pencil. Feels like a novelty right after all this typing.
I totally agree, and I think for instance, if I'm working on a keynote or if I'm working on speaking, I write things out because that helps me kind of embed it in myself. So I find if I just am typing, that it's a different reaction in my head of what sticks and what doesn't. Yeah, so I'm a big fan of writing too. I love paper and books anyway, so yeah.
Well, I started writing more to level out my tech with my thoughts.
Yeah, that is a nice thing to do to balance it out, not do it all on the computer.
So here I've got that you're the queen of reinvention.
I understand that I need to share that crown with you.
I've been told I love reinvention. I think you can do it at
Mhm.
any age. And I
Oh,
think
you can.
um,
Well, Sheila, I just turned 60 and I just published a book. So, I never thought that I would do something like that. I started the Ripple Network, this platform for women. I wrote my first TED Talk. I did all of these things in the last couple of years. So I would totally believe that it's never, I don't think we should constrain ourselves with age. Definitely not. But for me, reinvention has happened constantly. If I think about my studies, I studied chemistry and then I was like, not going to work and research in a lab. I had a great job. I was visited from a friend in college, and he was working for the magician David Copperfield. And I left my job and sold my house and put my stuff in storage to go on tour with David Copperfield. That was really fun, and it was something that I just, like, instinctually, I just needed to do it. I felt like everyone thought I'd lost my mind. 'Cause I had a good job, I had a house, I was like, I guess living the life again, what kind of society says is a successful life. And I just did that, and thank God that I did because that's where when we were on tour in Europe, that's where I met my now husband, and how I ended up living in Germany where I am now for 28 years. So thank goodness that I listened to myself and listened to my instincts and did that.
how interesting, though. So you were on the road, right? Like
I was literally on the road.
like on a
Yeah,
tour, from
on
show
a
to
tour.
show. And
Yeah. Had a tour I was on a tour bus. Oh my goodness, 2 suitcases, and that's it. But it was fun. It was such a great experience.
well, I like how you said they thought you lost your mind. I've heard the
Yeah.
is it a midlife crisis?
Yeah.
I'd hear it at 30, at 40, at 50, when someone just wants to try something completely new. Well, I've been an entrepreneur since pretty much what I've been my entire life since the age of 22, and I've gone from construction to retail jewelry to technology. And there's been a lot of, detours along the way, a lot of other
Yeah.
products or companies that we tried starting that perhaps weren't as successful. You look back sometimes and you laugh. And so you have to try.
You
Mm.
have I'm so with you. So you're definitely a fellow reinventionist. Is that a word? Because that's what it's about. It's about trying these new things, and I always think, I ask myself when I'm making a decision, I ask myself, "What if I don't do this? What's the impact? Will I have a regret?" I never want to have a regret, and that's how I try to make decisions. Obviously, not completely wild and not thought through. They are thought through. Sometimes I think individuals, when we make these kind of decisions and go in different areas, that people think, it's not not well thought through, but it is. It's just different, and I think that's a good place to be personally for me. It's not for everybody, but it's definitely for me.
When you're thinking of an idea, or I even thought about buying a business early on this year. She had been in business about 35 years and was retiring, and I thought maybe my next phase. And I went really deep for 2 weeks, and my family and my friends were like, interesting choice. I'm like, well, it's a business, it's already been built, it's a bit different than what I've been doing. And after being hands-on after those 2 weeks, and I spent hours literally
Mhm.
meeting with the suppliers and learning a lot of things, I came to the realization that that wasn't for me. So it wasn't a crazy idea, it was part of the process
Yeah.
of learning and experimenting and doing that business plan. Even though the numbers could have worked out, it just wasn't something that I in the end thought this is what I wanna do my next 10 or 15 years. And so that's how I explain it. It's part of the process. It's almost like elimination, right?
Right.
Right.
And that's the thing is what sounds for other people like, whoa, what is that shift? It is actually a thought through process. And obviously you went into this very intense, deep process and then you decided not to. So I think that that's what it's about. It's about taking the time to actually try to figure that out. And even if it is an idea that isn't quote typical or something that yeah, that
Enjoy
people
the
would think
journey.
is normal. Exactly, but, that's such a, like, an old statement, but it is about enjoying the journey. You're right.
I think it'd be kind of fun to go on tour for a good year now. Showing my new
Yeah.
app.
Yeah, there you go.
So, what would you say that your pivots have taught you about resilience and growth?
Mm. Well, resilience is just about getting up again and again every day and keeping going. And, I've had, as you said, you also have, not everything is a big success. Right now I'm sharing about some of the things that have been really successful. But I also had two ventures that didn't work out. And that left heartache and that left financial loss and frustration and pondering what am what am I doing? I mean, those are all, things that you question when things don't work out. But for me, this resilience piece is just really trying your best to take that and learn from it and go, okay, if I embed this into the next time that I do something, or how is this going to add value or make me just a little bit wiser in the next decisions that I make and to not I think some people potentially have a failure or take a risk and it doesn't work out and they go, "Oh, well, there you go, never again." But that was one time, and that doesn't mean that the next time is gonna have the same result. So it's just really being open to that and giving it a try. As long as you've kind of weighed out for yourself and you think that it's something that works and that you have if it's an adventure, do you have if it's a new venture or a new company, are you financially able to take care of things? You need to obviously, we need to think about those things, but to not be so afraid and to live with regret, I think that those are the things that kind of help you keep going, and be resilient.
That's a beautiful message. So, where can we find you online? Where can we buy your book?
SabineHutchison.com. The book is there, and you can also find me in LinkedIn as well.
I'll make sure to leave the URL in the comment.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for joining me today, Sabina.
Sheila, great. And you have to let me know when you do your tour. I'll follow you.
I know my first stop, you know what? It's going to be international. It's going to be Germany.
Germany, come to Hamburg. It's a great city.
Love it. Well, thank you all for tuning in for another episode of Milestone Moments in Business and Leadership. Until next time.